I'm reluctant to sort of make straightforward historical parallels to say that this era is like that era. But when Holocaust survivors talk about how eerily familiar things feel, I think we should take that seriously as well.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. It's great to be here as always. And today we're going to do some hard politics. I like to stay away from hard politics because this is a Second Amendment channel, and I tried my best to stick to Second Amendment stuff, but sometimes hard politics has a bearing on self-defense, which implicates the Second Amendment, and specifically how the political atmosphere that you find yourself in might alter how you perceive various things that are going on around you and how you might respond to that. So today I want to talk about the situation with Antifa and the whole anti-fascist thing being designated terrorist organization, and how one of the, I'm going to call him what it is, leaders in the space, even though this is a decentralized organization, one of the leaders in this space has been outed from his university job and has decided to flee the country. And in my research on this, I found some stuff that I wanted to share with you that can put you in the right mindset if you encounter any of this stuff out there, that you know the severity of what we could be talking about here. Now, whenever we talk about political turmoil like this that has a high likelihood of implicating the right to self-defense, just because you carry a gun or a knife or pepper spray or taser, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, does not mean that you are insured to come out of that situation 100% uninjured, or other people for that matter. So it is, I think, my duty to remind you that you should be carrying medical equipment in your vehicles, in your on your person, and you should have multiple kits in your house and all that sort of stuff. And my one-stop shop for all things medical is Medical Gear Outfitters. We have a discount code with those folks that you should use to great effect to get that stuff at a reasonable rate so you guys can get yourself squared away. Special thanks to Medical Gear Outfitters for making today's video possible. All right, so to be fair and to establish the context, we're going to go to The Guardian, which is the rightest of right-wing news outlets out there, for the official story from the mainstream. Rutgers professor moving to Europe after threats over Antifa accusations. You know, he's not fleeing or anything like that. He's not moving in a hurry. He's just moving. Sure. The Rutgers chapter of Turning Point USA basically went to the university and said, hey, what is this dude doing teaching at this university? Turning Point USA. Golf clap. TPUSA's claim is that his rhetoric is endangering conservative students. And I'll put it like this. I have never sat in one of this dude's classes, so I can't say precisely what it is that they are targeting. They clearly believe that they have some sort of claim there. And I would say that there is other supporting evidence on the internet that might very well be the case. For instance, this dude is the author of Antifa, the Anti-Fascist Handbook. And while I have absolutely no intention of reading this piece of trash, and I don't suspect that you will either, why don't we just use what the dude has said himself to establish what he thinks about particular types of folks?
The question I would ask is do we think that Trump is a fascist or fascistic or authoritarian figure or not? Let's just assume for the sake of argument that we think he is. What does that mean our politics should look like, right? Does it mean that we should go about business as usual, hold signs, make little memes, or does it mean that we should grind the country to a halt and say, this racist person running our country is a huge threat, that people will lose their lives by being deported, by being deprived of health care, by being incarcerated, by being killed by police, and make it so that we will not accept business as usual?
That was 7 years ago. And I want to make sure that I get his quote 100% correct. This is published on The Guardian, and this is a direct quote from Mr. Bray. I am not now, nor have I ever been part of any kind of anti-fascist or anti-racist organization. I just haven't. I'm a professor. We haven't heard that one before or anything like that. That is how they do that. You guys know this. You're smart enough to know this. They say, well, I just study these things and publish books on them and preach to a whole bunch of impressionable, mushy minds to get them to go out and do things, even though I didn't tell them to expressly go do that thing. I've just planted the ideas in their brain, and whatever they do is what they do. I'm just a professor. If you're just a professor, then why the hell are you fleeing to Europe, first of all? And I'll tell you why he's fleeing to Europe. Because 50% of the sales of that book went to the International Anti-Fascist Defense Fund. And that's exactly what you think it is. All you need to do is look at the front page. Depending on your interpretation, the interpretation of the Department of Justice, the Department of State, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and whether or not that designation as a terrorist organization for Antifa and Antifa-related groups sticks, this person could be considered a financier, because that is obviously a support organization for those types of movements around the world. We would assume that they do that here in the United States as well. That's why he has fled to Europe, although I'm interested to see where he fled to in Europe, because, well, there are several European states that have extradition treaties. Depending on whether or not they... Now, just because somebody has an extradition treaty doesn't mean that they will automatically extradite. The United States government would have to make a very good case for that extradition.
In the 20s and 30s and 40s, arguments were not enough. They weren't. So we can't assume that they're going to be enough now.
Now, you can believe whatever you want to believe about this situation. I'm reporting this because it's on both sides of the news cycle. And as of the filming of this video, Rutgers has said that they are going to double down, which I have questions about that. If I was a person in the Department of Justice or the Department of State, what are the funding mechanisms in there that are being used for that? And what is the political persuasion that supports that sort of thing? And those are questions that I would have if I were in those positions, and that's why I should never hold a position in government. Beside the point that they've decided not to do that, this guy says that he's leaving the country. So I have real strong questions there. I'm reporting this to you because I wanted to use it as a framing mechanism to discuss the concept that these types of folks have in their brain called preemptive self-defense. And it's hard to pin a lot of this down because you know how like the Trumpster does the weave, right? And, you know, he'll talk about something and it'll weave all the way back to that thing later. That's what he calls it. I don't particularly care for it, but, you know, it is a thing. These people use the same thing, only they pack it with a whole bunch of nonsensical words that they don't need to use. So it's very difficult to pin down in a concise clip to show you guys. You have to watch like a 40-minute dissertation on it to be able to get the whole concept. But to distill it down, the concept of preemptive self-defense is exactly what it sounds. They perceive through some kind of emotional means that they are threatened, and therefore they are going to go out and do things to people to try to prevent that from happening.
In the 20s and 30s and 40s, arguments were not enough. They weren't. So we can't assume that they're going to be enough now.
That is not what self-defense doctrine in the United States is. In order to employ self-defense in the United States, you have to have an imminent threat of severe bodily harm or death, or to yourself or to someone that you care about, in order to deploy self-defense. These people are saying, hey, we think that these people might eventually do something, so we're going to go do things like what happened last month. So while we're all having a great time right now, watching the videos on X and various places of like the dude in the frog costume getting his air hole sprayed with OC spray and all that sort of stuff, while that's very entertaining, I've wasted minutes of my life on that one. There is a serious component here that you should all be aware of and that we have to keep in our mind, that while we see these things going on, the ideology that underlies it is insidious and very dangerous. And it's just like you've got an animal cornered. It tends to be very dangerous. So while this sort of stuff is funny because it's outletting on individuals that are prepared to handle it, like law enforcement and people in riot gear and stuff like that, understand oftentimes as these groups spiral out of control, they do damage in other places. Have your head on a swivel, be paying attention to your environment around you, carry your fucking gun and your medical equipment. And remember, don't go stupid places with stupid people to do stupid things at stupid times of the day. And that's what I got for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. And if you found this message impactful or interesting or informative, then please consider helping us with the algorithm and subscribing to the channel, as well as interacting with it. A comment with a couple words in it, as well as the like button absolutely helps out. And of course, share it to all your friends that need to see it. And thanks for watching. Hopefully we'll see another one here at the VSO Gun channel.